Well, welcome back, everybody. You guys are looking really good for about 3:30 in the afternoon, and welcome back to the last session of day one here at True North 2019. Now next, an exciting announcement about the groundbreaking funding initiative that will help cement Canada's role as a global force in the development of artificial intelligence. Please welcome co-founder and managing partner of the Leaders Fund, David Stein. Over to you, David.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm really excited to be here today after a 2-year journey to be announcing Canada's largest AI prize. This is something that we've dreamed about for a long time, and today we're really going to talk about 3 things: why we're doing this, what we're focusing the prize on, and what we expect to achieve with this inaugural Leaders Prize competition. So to give you a bit of an idea of why we're doing this, I want to give you a little bit of a story of my background. So I was fortunate, I got to co-found 2 software companies. The first was a company called WorkBrain. We grew that from 0 to 100 million in revenue in 6 years, and we got to serve some of the world's largest companies, and we learned a lot through that experience about talent, determination, and what it takes to win, and what kind of mindset you need to compete and win globally. Following that, we started a company called Ripple, and we pioneered the space called social performance management. And with Ripple, we were very focused on, if any of you are here for Tom Friedman's presentation this morning, we focused on a lot of companies that started in 2007. Airbnb was a client, Facebook was a client, LinkedIn was a client. And again, we got to understand what's some of the DNA that drives these great companies. Our last company was acquired by Salesforce. Mark Benioff, who some of you might be familiar with, called us up. Interesting story. We thought Salesforce was going to invest in our company. 5 minutes before our board meeting, we got a Facebook message from Mark Benioff saying, "Can you call me right now?" We called him up. He said, "We don't want to invest in your company." We took a deep breath. He said, "We want to buy your company." And so it was a great opportunity to join Salesforce and again learn what drives the most successful enterprise software company. And so following 3 years there, I sort of said, I'm in Canada, I want to make a difference, what can I focus on? And that focus really came down to 3 key areas. The first was helping develop tech talent. So I'm very fortunate to work with the Schulich Foundation, which runs Canada's largest STEM scholarship program. Every year, the brightest student in every high school in Canada is nominated by their school for the scholarship. 50 winners are then chosen by 20 universities, winners receiving $100,000 each. So helping develop this pipeline of tech talent. The second thing you might not expect to see in this presentation is build a world-class winery. Now, it's a passion for me, and we said, like everything else, if we're going to do it, let's see the best we can build. If anyone here wants to visit, it's called Cloudsley Cellars in Vineland, Ontario. Tell them that I sent you and they'll look after you. My primary focus is really about growing tech companies. And so to help do that, we launched in 2016 the Leaders Fund. Leaders Fund, essentially, we focus on enterprise software. We invest in fast-growing companies, and we typically will invest between $3 and $15 million per company. And our real goal is to build a firm that's all ex-operators. So, we've been to 100 million a few times. One of our partners has grown a business to 2 billion annual revenue. And our whole idea is that what the Canadian ecosystem really needed was help scaling their companies. They're very good at developing IP, very smart and talented people. But what's the missing ingredient to get really big? That's what our firm focuses on. So again, if you have an interesting company that fits that, we're happy to talk to you. During that whole experience, I meeting companies over the last couple of years, one of the things that sort of, I want to say concerned me a bit, but gave me pause, is in my whole entrepreneurial career, I was around people that were all about competing and winning globally, solving really difficult problems, growing really fast. And when I started to have the opportunity to meet with a lot of entrepreneurs in Canada, one of the things that I found was that people were not reaching their potential in terms of how big the ideas are that they could pursue, the impact that they could have. And so we stopped back and we thought, how can we change this? And I think a really good analogy is the Toronto Raptors. For many, many years, the Toronto Raptors were happy making the playoffs. Making the playoffs was a win, right? For many, many years, we're in the playoffs, that's a win. With Masai Ujiri and now we had Kawhi Leonard, the mindset changed from winning is the playoffs to winning is the whole thing. And so we started to think, how can we inspire Canadians to take more risk? How can we inspire them to pursue larger markets? Because oftentimes we meet entrepreneurs and they might be very bright, but they're pursuing opportunities that are limited in size. How do we get people to tackle more difficult problems? We know that the most valuable and largest businesses are built when people tackle really large problems. So how do we encourage people to do that? And how do we compete globally? Again, winning in Canada is great. It's a nice start. But how do we actually build companies that aspire to compete and win globally? And that's the measuring stick that they look at. And finally, how do we think about companies that really want to grow like crazy? And so again, have this maniacal focus on growth. And we saw this at Salesforce. At Salesforce, it's a huge company. They were always looking ahead and thinking ahead 24 months in advance and thinking, even at $3 billion, at $5 billion, at $7 billion in revenue, how do we continue to grow at over 30% a year? So, what is it about that mindset, and how do we try and get more of that into Canada? And so that's really that journey and that thinking and those experiences of meeting entrepreneurs, of trying to understand what were some of the things we learned that led to success, what was really the mindset. And so, oftentimes we hear as well from our Prime Minister and from others, the world needs more Canada. The world needs more Canada. Now, some folks might interpret that differently. Some folks may interpret that as they're looking for our value systems. Some folks may interpret that as they want to come to Canada because we've legalized a certain substance recently that they want to partake in. Our idea is a little bit different. When we think about give the world more Canada, we think give the world more of what's in this room. Give the world the great entrepreneurship, the great innovation that Canadians are developing, and let's have those companies all over the world want to consume our products because they're great, and with that, experience what Canada has to offer. So that's really a lot of the thinking that led us on this 2-year journey to where we are today for the Leaders Prize. So what is it really? We think of it, it's a catalyst for change. We're going to be successful if we are able to change the mindset, shift the needle, solve a really difficult problem that matters not only to Canadians, but matters to all citizens around the world. And so for this challenge, we had the goal of bringing together the incredible AI talent that resides all over Canada, whether it's you have a teenage kid in their basement who's really incredibly smart and is taken to solving AI problems because it's fun for them. We've brought together partners from across different industries who have a viewpoint on this problem, and we've got the support of academia. And so to pull this all together, not only do we want to start with those groups, but we also want to make the solution available to these groups, when this competition ends. And so the way we really think about the Leaders Prize, it's one problem. It's going to take place over the span of 1 year. So we expect to be here next year where we're going to crown the winner. And it's all about one nation. So in order to participate in this competition, you have to be a Canadian or a Canadian resident. We want to, again, flex our muscles and show the rest of the world how good we are at achieving greatness. So 1 year, and one nation, one problem. And by the way, $1 million. So, maybe that's a little asterisk, but again, we believe to make this competition impactful, to have it be meaningful, to make a difference, and to get our brightest minds setting aside their time to focus on this, we wanted to make it a really meaningful prize that could make a meaningful difference to the winning team and could propel and incent all great engineers and developers across this great nation to participate in our challenge. So, we're getting there. So, how do we think about the problem? You're going to hear about this in a few minutes. This took us 2 years to get here. So the first criteria of the problem was it had to be solvable with AI. This is about tech for good. How are we able to use artificial intelligence and the great AI skills we have in Canada to meaningfully solve this problem? Number two, it's got to be of global significance. The challenge that we're going to announce that people are going to solve, when this is solved, everyone's going to breathe a sigh of relief. It's going to give us that sort of godliness aspect in cyberspace that Friedman talked about. If we're all living in the cloud, then this solution matters. And you're going to be the judges. Does this solution have broad awareness? We think it does. So with that, if I had a drum or the drummers, I'd do a drum roll. So what is the Leader's Prize? This problem, maybe you can guess it. It's used to manipulate public opinion, number one. Number two, it undermines democracy. So that's a pretty serious thing. Even bigger claim, we believe this problem threatens our very civilization. It threatens the trust that exists between each of us, between our communities, between our provinces, between our countries. It's used as a weapon by companies, by nefarious individuals, by nation states. And because we are living in cyberspace, which was a very apt description, what are we going to do now? What tools do we have to bring some semblance of order and trust to that space? And the answer is fake news. Fake news. So I assume most people in the room here are familiar with fake news. Probably also, like we do, believe that it's a real serious problem, and that solutions have to be brought. We know that with the social networks, they've been used to manipulate elections. We know that more and more people are not believing what they read. And why that's such a problem is it allows leaders to move from being more Democrats to despots, because they can wave their hand with any news they don't like and say that's fake news. So you see something in the news, so-and-so did X, no, that never happened, it's been manipulated, it's fake. And when we don't know what to believe and we don't know what to trust, it causes a lot of churn and turmoil in our civilization. And so, you can see some of the, stats we pulled up were pretty amazing, that, 27% of Americans have seen at least one fake news site prior to the election, right? 70% of people are worried. We're now going into an election cycle in Canada in the fall. So when we thought about it, we said this is a really topical problem. It causes a lot of issues. It has fundamental implications for our society. And if we can make a major dent in solving this problem, number one, that's going to be fantastic. Number two, it's actually going to make a real difference, and people are going to want to consume our solution across the globe. So the Leader's Prize, it's launching today. It's being run in 2 phases of the competition. The first phase of the competition is the identification of facts and being able to help verify, are they true or false? And that phase of the competition, again, anyone who's a Canadian or a Canadian resident can register. You can be a team of one, you can be a team of many. We're encouraging people who work at corporations to form teams, people in academic institutions. As I said, the really smart programmer living in your basement, you're all eligible. We welcome all comers. And the second phase that we're going to be looking at here, which goes to the next level, is it's one thing to be able to identify with a high degree of accuracy whether a fact appears to be real or fake. It's another thing to then back it up. And so the second phase is going to have contestants actually define whether or not, with counterexamples, whether the information is true or false. You can learn all the details at leadersprize.ca, rules, regulations, dates, availability, data sets, etc. So we encourage you to visit there. And finally, we'd also like to thank the people that helped bring this together. So we've been working on this, as I said, a 2-year journey. We've had the great support of Communitech, the financial support of the Schulich Foundation, the academic support of Waterloo, and I'd like to also thank some of our other partners, from Cisco to CIBC to Desjardins, the Vector, PolitiFact, Thomson. But I'd also like to take a moment and really thank a few individuals who, without this, we wouldn't be here today. I'd like to thank Ian and Janelle from Communitech, who've been really driving this hard for a long time. We wouldn't be here today. I'd like to thank Sarah, who's been our lead. I'd like to thank Pascal, who's been our academic big brain, and his team of people. So he's had about 5 folks that have worked with him. And I have their names here because it was a bit, I'd like to thank the 5 individuals that were part of this. Vikash B, Vikash G, Kashif, Nita, Gaurav. And so with that, thanks all. We're excited to be launching this. We're excited to be unveiling this. We expect amazing solutions to come out of this competition. We encourage everyone to participate, and let's make something great happen in Canada. Thank you very much.